Date is the 3rd of June, 2014, and I think we've all noticed a fairly light agenda for the day, and so not to belittle the good hard work that we get from our staff here, but I think most of what we have is work that's already been set up, so I didn't think we had to have a lot of conversation about it. I think most of it's from last year's budget conferences anyway. So let's start with our consent agenda.
A motion to approve consent agenda items A through F.
And any conversation, gentlemen?
No.
Wow.
I really don't have any questions on the consent agenda.
I've got one quick question regarding item F, and that's the boat launch question. The work was stopped. Is that a Fred question or a Dan Stahl question?
Dan Stahl.
The work was stopped on the Squalicum boat launch. What happened there?
So there was, Fred, you want to?
Let me explain that. The plans that were out for bid on the Squalicum boat launch right out here included panels to go beyond what the existing panel structure was like from 30 years ago. And what happened was, at the end of it, the panels were all irregular. They went up and down, sideways. They were all kind of cattywampus. And the way the plans were designed, it couldn't have been, the attachments to the new ones to extend it another, I think it was 30 feet, could not be done.
Okay.
And we could not come to terms with the contractor in a fair and equitable way. It was a change order. We can't force a contractor to enter into a change order. They wanted to do it on a reimbursable basis. We felt we had to redesign the whole thing and then go out for bid again next year when more funding is in place, because it's going to cost more to do it. The panels are not perfectly aligned like the plan said. So that was the problem.
Okay. I think we talked about this a few months ago.
We may have.
Right?
I don't recall. I know we've talked about it internally here, and that's why we're going for an additional grant to cover the costs of doing that extension.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Everything else is complete, well, and it's in operation, but that last 30 feet or so.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you for that. And administration, please. Diane.
A motion to approve resolution number 1181D, adopting the Commission Code of Governance and Conduct, dissolving the Standing Ethics Committee, and reiterating the procedure for addressing staff ethics questions.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I guess I'm the only one on the agenda today, so I'll keep it brief for you. We've been talking about the Ethics Committee for a couple years now, and back in, I believe it was July of 2011, at the Commission's request, I gave an update on the Standing Ethics Committee and the types of issues that we were dealing with and the membership. And at that time, we had 2 vacancies, and we had a lot of people who were looking to end their term when their term expired at the end of the year. And the direction was to try to continue with the Ethics Committee, to try to find new members to take those places. And we weren't very successful in doing that. And since that time, on the good note, we have not had issues that needed to go in front of the Standing Ethics Committee. So the Standing Ethics Committee really has not been active for about 2 years. So that's a really good sign that the practices and procedures we have in place are very effective. And when we do have questions that come up, we have what is in our procedure right now, our triage group, which consists of the executive director, the port auditor, and the port attorney. They can get together and address any staff questions or ethical concerns that may come up, and they look through our policies and make decisions. If they're not able to come to a decision, that's when it would kick over into the Standing Ethics Committee to be an advisory body to that group. And so we haven't had anything that has gone there. We've certainly had some questions that have come up that have been resolved successfully. So then the second piece of this resolution is that upon request from a commissioner, there was the code of conduct. That the idea was that this would be a wonderful way for commissioners, for you 3, to publicly announce how you are going to interact with each other as far as the code of conduct and code of governance. And so we thought that it would be a good idea to combine these things, to say, here's the code of conduct that you asked us to look at, And we got this model from the Port of Olympia. They have the similar type of code that the commissioners adopted. And then dissolve the Standing Ethics Committee with the understanding that we know some of these folks in the community that have good practical knowledge or experience dealing with ethical discernment processes, and we would certainly be able to reach out to any of them at any time to get their input and advice on issues that we felt we needed some outside eyes on. So that's really the essence of this resolution. I think that the Port has learned a lot over the years from the Standing Ethics Committee and how they looked at different issues and the policies that we have in place. So I would recommend adoption of this resolution.
What, excuse me, what was the length of term for the Ethics Committee members?
I believe it started out at 3 years and they could do 2 consecutive terms, and then it got added to be unlimited terms.
And some years had no meetings, basically.
Correct.
And some cases wanted out of it because of inactivity and so forth and so on, I suppose.
Well, we had some people who I think were on the Ethics Committee since its adoption in 2003, and I think they kind of said, hey, I've done my time, I'm good to go. Let somebody else be on the committee.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, in other organizations I belong to, we've had a code of conduct. SCORE, for example, which is volunteers, we have a national code of conduct. And part of it is, as commissioners, there's a lot of things that we can do as a commissioner. And there's not much that we can't do. But just because you have the right to do something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And I think this kind of reminds you as you're going along, public trust and honesty and setting high standards and everything that it does. I think it's a good check, and I'm in favor of it.
Well, I want to say thank you to both Jim and Dan for supporting this, and thank you to the staff for putting it together. This obviously grew out of what I thought was a problem that we'd had in the past, and it doesn't lock us in as commissioners to doing any particular thing. And as we are elected individually to represent in the way that we think we should, it also doesn't hamstring us from doing that as well. But I think that I agree with what Dan just said, is it does sort of a little reminder. It just says, hey, let's be cool, right? So I'm very happy about seeing this finally. There was some concern about the ethics committee. So there's one part that I want to ask a question about, and it's on the triage group. So why isn't that HR, you, Elizabeth, why aren't you part of the triage group?
Well, that was part of the original ad hoc ethics committee that was put together in 2003.
Oh.
So I don't know if they just forgot about the HR department then, or if they elected to not have that person in to be able to be kind of an outside body if they ever needed. So, but I can tell you in reality, I certainly talk with the executive director and the auditor, and when things come up, they typically come through me to them. So an employee, and most of our questions that have come up lately have been on our conflict of interest policy. And it talks in the conflict of interest policy addresses when you can have a second job and what kind of work you can do, or who your family members can work for. Can they work for tenants? Can they not work for tenants? What are the rules of the road? And so those are some of the questions that come up, and typically what happens is an employee will talk to their supervisor, and they'll say, oh, gee, go talk to HR. They come talk to me, and if I think that there's a question with the policy, then I take it to Rob. And then if Rob wants to have the whole committee look at it, they typically will just a couple of phone calls or email back and forth to discuss the issue, and they get a resolution. So that might be why I'm not on the triage.
Well, I
think
like
part-
that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think part of the reason that HR isn't on there as well is the other 3 individuals have a direct reporting role to the commission.
That's true.
The auditor directly to you, the obviously me to you, and the legal counsel to you as well. As HR goes through the executive director, doesn't report directly to you. So the idea might have been to establish a body that had direct reporting responsibility to the commission.
Okay. Elizabeth, do you feel a need to be included in the triage group? I mean, as far as HR procedures, you're of the three, you're the only one that's trained in it. So that's the only concern I had was that they might have to bring you in for every meeting anyway.
They typically do loop me in
Okay.
because they're going back to the policy, and I'm kind of the keeper of the policy.
Okay.
So I don't feel like it's necessary to have me in there at all.
Okay.
I think the communication is so open here that I don't think we need it.
Okay.
I think that idea with the triage, if something doesn't work out and there's still questions that arise, that you can go to the community with people that are very qualified in that particular area, whatever it might be, that can be called in to assist.
Right, and we know people in the community that are really experts in the field of ethical discernment and would be happy to come in and give some advice.
Yeah.
All right. Anything further, gentlemen? No? No? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Looks like we have at least one new item in new business, and that would be coming from Shirley McPherron.
A motion by the commission approving the extension of consent to assignment of lease from High Five Incorporated to Command Aviation Incorporated.
Thank you, Diane. Good afternoon, Commissioners. And I really appreciate your willingness to add this to your agenda today. We're trying to meet the deadline of our tenants' requests. So back in April, the Commission approved a consent to assignment of lease for between Butch Quam of High Five and Command Aviation Scott Hume for a hangar out at the Bellingham International Airport. That consent to assignment required that the transaction close on or before May 31st of this year. And unfortunately, they're working through their financing, et cetera, and it did not close by May 31st. So we're asking the Commission to simply extend the consent to assignment through November, which we believe it'll close far earlier than November, but we need to give our tenants some flexibility. So thank you.
We gave Mr. Hume, an extension in his lease so he could get favorable financing. Has that been a problem?
It's not a problem. We gave him until May 31st to close the transaction, but he's going through SBA financing, and they didn't understand that it would take as long as it would.
Okay.
So, and then they have an environmental report to do. So it's not as though everybody isn't working towards getting it done. They really are. It's just taking longer than we anticipated.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Shirley. Any new business from you two gentlemen? Nothing at all? All right. I do want to say a couple of things, though. Crystal from accounting, she's new. Everybody say hi, Crystal. And also Brady, who is our new real estate professional. So hello, Brady, and welcome. All right. You too, Crystal. All right. If nothing further, anybody?
Well, you have another new person
Oh,
here, too. You have Amy Suttles.
Where's Amy at?
She's our new
There's
public
Amy. I'm
records
sorry. I didn't
officer.
see you, Amy. Amy's our new public records officer. There we go. Did I miss anybody now? Okay, now, all right. So welcome to all the new people. And with that, we will close. Thank you very much.
That's a world record.